how are you doing?
Hi, hold on just one second.
No, you're fine.
My charger. Can you get it and plug it into that? Sorry, Rachel. I'm not, they're doing shutters in my office and it feels so out of sorts
Totally fine.
to like not have to get my things. Good.
Totally fine. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. You know, when there's any little bit of construction in your house, you're like, I don't know what's happening. There's so much
All you
things.
hear is hammers, and you're like, They're not even hammering anymore. I can still hear them."
Yes, confusion abounds. The cats are going crazy because there's hammering. It's a lot.
I know that well. Normally, my cat is causing chaos in here. Today, he's not in. He's
Yeah.
out there, but so I get it. So obviously, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you directed the last four episodes of Daisy Jones and the Six.
Kind of. There's a standalone in the middle of that
Right.
back after I directed. I did 6, 8, 9, 10.
Okay.
So I
Yes.
did the
I
finale, but
just skipped
yes, I did
seven in my
four of
head.
them in back.
I skipped seven in my head and
I
was
do
like,
as
no,
well.
6 through 10 is 4 episodes and forgot
Yeah,
technically five. Well,
because
so
this is
you do
our next seven.
so you do though get kind of the meat of the show. While the first half we are just learning about the band and them getting together, the
Mhm.
major climax and like the solution and everything was in your hands. For something like this, where it had a big fan base going in, and there are so many people invested simply because it's Fleetwood Mac fan fiction. Did you ever have like any reservations, or were you kind of just like, I know exactly what I'm doing and I'm ready to tell the what everyone is kind of waiting for aspect of this?
I never feel like I know exactly what I'm doing on anything ever. And that is those are the kind of jobs that I love to take. I feel like if something doesn't scare me a little or challenge me, um, I won't be as good because I won't be sort of fully invested in it.
Mhm.
Our showrunner did let me bring my own director of photography, my own first AD, and that really helped me make it feel like it was mine. And so you do think this is my movie and bring your all to it. And that really is all I could give the fans is my best work. And how do I make it mine and make it something that happens in my voice so that it's even if it's based on something, it still has the artistry of the filmmaker in it.
Mhm.
It's faithful, but still mine, if that makes sense.
Yeah, completely. And I think you do have some of the best episodes of the entire season because
Oh,
I love
thanks.
I love those last two episodes a lot. And I think it is just it's a testament to like I picked up I'm the kind of person that reads a book when I know it's being adapted. But no one told me that this was essentially Fleetwood Mac fanfic. And then when I learned that it was basically Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks, I was like, everyone's lied to me. Like you've all like I would have picked this years ago. No one told me. And so going into this show, I was just very excited to kind of see how these actors kind of embody the roles and bring them to life. And it is really interesting kind of seeing all of the like not nods to the fact that Riley Keough is music royalty, but like we all kind of know. And so
Right.
we all know. And so, but as a director, like I know you're not thinking like all of this while unpacking a story, but how did you kind of make all of that helps build the 70s vibe that we are following through with the entire series? And so how did you kind of navigate marrying all of those while still being so truthful to the 70s and making it feel like, yeah, I believe that this was a band from 1973 or whatever it is?
Luckily, I didn't have to do the heavy lifting on that. I
Mhm.
think the first block really had to set the tone, and we had a fantastic costume designer, fantastic production designer. She and I had worked together before on Little Fires Everywhere, on The Catch, on a ton of Shondaland shows. So we had a shorthand and could even communicate during the first block, like just through emails, like setting up my block.
Mhm.
Um, what I really had to think about was just carrying the narrative forward and making sure that, in block one, it's Daisy Jones over here and the six over here. In block two, it's Daisy Jones and the six together.
Mhm.
And so now that these two celestial beings are same place, same time, all the time, how do I get the audience excited about this? Like, I'm paying off something that block one set up. If it didn't feel like they were on fire and everything was like building and taking it to the next level, it would have almost been a letdown when it should be the climax.
Mhm.
So all of my energy was how do we get that Billy and Daisy dynamic and keep the fireworks around it all the time?
When you did have, I think, kind of the luxury of, I think episode 6 is the one where they're doing the photo shoot, right? For the
Mhm.
cover, which I
Mhm.
loved. It was like, yeah, that is some weird ass 70s decision making when they're like sitting on a couch in the mountains. I'm like, who would do that? But it was really cool to kind of like see that tension, and it worked really well to flow through like the rest of the season. But when you are working with all these moving parts, like, yes, they're working with the golden hour to get this photo. So then that means you as a director are working with the golden hour to get the golden hour in the actual shot. How do you kind of navigate working all of those moving parts in one to make something like that photo shoot, which a photo shoot alone is enough issues, and you're adding like I'm a director trying to get the shot that the photo shoot is also trying to get at the same time.
It was also the coldest day ever on that day.
It's
We,
like,
we were someplace, I didn't even know parts of California got like this. It was snowing. And like poor Riley is out there basically in underwear and a shawl. And like, and I have on a heated vest and a parka. And I mean, it was really freezing. I mean, Sebastian had a vest over no shirt. So there were definitely elements against this in addition to trying to get things. We had to make it look like golden hour. We didn't have to get it all in that short period of time. So I did lean heavily on our DP for that. I think it's like, how do you eat an elephant? Bite by bite. I had to just know this is a big mammoth thing. We only have X amount of hours to do it. Here are the things that are the priorities. And then we go down the list from there. And the priority for me was really, and this was a hard hat trick to pull off, is feeling the tension between the two of them, feeling the fight between the two of them, and still feeling like those two need to go someplace and have sex, like, and just get this out of their system. Like, and that was really at the forefront, like everything that's going on, always be watching and communicating with the actors and making sure we feel like they're going to tear each other apart, and they should tear each other apart, like at the same time.
Mhm. Yeah, you mentioned Sebastian, that he is my favorite character on the show. I am
Love him
obsessed.
so much.
Just like he's like, I gotta go see rollerball. Like I'm obsessed with him. I don't whatever he chose to do in that role, I was like, no notes. This is chaotic. I love it so much. Um,
Also the only actor that I let improvise because he was so in character. Anything he said helped. Like, I mean, Scott Neustadter's words are sort of precious and holy to
mhm.
me. So I would always be like, well, let's give Scott a scripted version before you get a freebie. With Sebastian, I'd be like, Scott, does that work? And he'd be like, it works. Like he got to always do his version.
Just so funny. Like every time it cuts to his like in the 90s thing, I'm like, this is so wild. He's like, I bought a yacht. And I'm like, great, I love that for you. I love that you're on a yacht. Um, but with the show like this, the music is so important. But what I really, really love about it is how it ties in music from the 70s into the actual show. Like the episode before yours when they did Ooh La La, it was like, oh,
Mhm.
great, like more people will know Ooh La La, like just off the top of their head now. I love that song, but it doesn't really pop up anywhere. And so when you are navigating a band with their original music that was created specifically for the show, as well as music from the 70s that we all kind of already know, how much of a hand do you have? I talked to the music supervisor the other day, but how much do you have of a hand of like figuring out the perfect beat? Because like, I believe it's your episode, which I'll save this for after it, but your episode has the chain in it, I believe. When the needle drops on the chain, which I
Yeah.
was finally a Fleetwood Mac song. But like, so how do you kind of like figure out how much say do you have in figuring out the perfect kind of input of actual music versus the bands?
I come from music videos, which
Mhm.
helps. So the way that I used to work is listening to music and thinking what is appropriate for this.
Mhm.
I made my own playlist on this and did the same thing. And so some of those tracks would just be temp music we were playing on set, and the editor would like just drop it in anyway. But with the chain, this is another example of like when you have good people, you can just trust them. I
Mhm.
came into the edit and he played it and was like, I know this is just temp because we don't really want to use Fleetwood Mac. And I was like, oh no, this works. We should lean in and just let it play. And he was like, really? And I was like, why not? Like, let's just see. And Scott was like, yeah. So it really was just saying yes to a good idea instead of thinking I have to have my own.
Yeah, I love it so much. I think the show is so much just fun, especially because like I'm a big 70s music fan, so I love just kind of getting to unpack it. I think we all have an obsession with the 70s because most of us didn't get to see our favorite bands when they were
Yeah.
alive because we weren't, or we were too young, or whatever it may be. And so my last question is though, you got to bring to life 70s era SNL. And so when you are navigating that specifically, where it is a very different set than people are used to anymore, it's a very different kind of setup. Because it used to be in the round and that is not the case anymore. Well, sort of, it's like a thrust stage, but you know what I mean? Used to be more completed. Um, how was it working to go and like get that specific era of SNL and that vibe in back for a show set in the 70s versus like what we know it to be today?
A lot of meetings with the production designer, going through the set drawings and what the vision was to make it look like New York, because we're in
Mhm.
New Orleans, shot that, and then like SNL in the 70s. Same thing with meetings with the costume designer. And again, I always would focus on what was going on with Billy and Daisy, because I felt like you'll never get anything that you do from history. You'll never get it exactly the way that it really was. There'll be something that we do differently now built into the lights or into the stage, decoration. Like there'll be something different. So you sort of hide the seams by making the performances so dynamic. That's what your eye goes to. So many times on this shoot, somebody would bring up an issue and I would be like, if that's what the audience notices, we're not doing our jobs.
Mhm.
Like, because it should be so, we can't take our eyes off Billy and Daisy and what's going on between them at all times, that your eye is just not going to what's under the seams.
Yeah. Uh,
I have see them, but the audience doesn't.
the audience knows I can point them out. They
Right.
thank you so much for talking with me today. I love Daisy Jones. I wore my sweatshirt I bought specifically because of the show yesterday, and I was like, damn, I should have waited today. Could have put on my Daisy Jones sweatshirt. But thank you so much, and I can't wait for audiences to get to see the rest of this season.
No,
I
thank you.
think
I
it's
love
good. Of
this show and I love talking about it. So thank you.
course, thank you. Have a great one. Bye.
You too. Bye bye.